Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, it is a pleasure to speak with everyone about an experience engine today. So to start, to introduce myself, my name is Kathy Grandes, and I'm a VP of Marketing Strategy and Planning here at Shift, and I've been with Shift for about 6 years now. And I have been in the industry for a little bit longer than that. And my focus has always been around direct and digital, creating one-to-one interactions, personalizations for customers, and creating really that personalized experience across multiple channels. So excited to take you through some ideas around that today. And I'll pass it over to Devin to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Devin Bindig. I'm a Salesforce Marketing Cloud architect and part of the technology operations team at Shift Paradigm. And I have been with Shift for 2 years and Salesforce Marketing Cloud and marketing automation for over 15 years.
Many years, but we look really young, so it's fine. So today's agenda, like I said, there's a lot to go through. We're really going to talk about what do personalized experiences look like, why they matter, how an experience engine could work, bringing it to life in Salesforce Marketing Cloud that Devin's going to take us through, and then what you need to make it work. And then we have a Q&A section after that. So just a little housekeeping on the Q&A. Just please make sure that if you have any questions, please put it into the Q&A feature, not in the chat. If you happen to put it in the chat, we'll try to catch it there too, but ideally in the Q&A section. And we'll try to leave about 10 minutes for Q&A. So gather your questions as we keep going. But all right, what do personalized experiences look like? So when we talk about personalization, there's quite a few ways that different people will respond to what it means. So sometimes it depends on the role that they're in within their organization or even just their own experience with it. And we found a really great definition from Gartner, who described personalization as a process that creates a relevant, individualized interaction between two parties designed to enhance the experience of the recipient. I think the key word here, especially as we're talking about an experience engine, is process. So gone are the days of a first name and some colloquial salutation passing as, personalization. So really today's webinar is going to tap into the many points of our definition, including not only the process, which I kind of emphasized earlier, but the relevancy, the interaction, the design of a personalized experience, which really is our engine. So imagine a world, what does this actually mean when it comes to the experience? Imagine that it's not only tailored specifically to your individual customers, but it also continues to evolve based off of their behaviors. It includes dynamic content to ensure that each touch point is memorable and hyper-personalized. It includes rewarding and acknowledging their willingness to engage with you in a way that also enables your organization to unlock effectiveness or program efficiencies. So a good example of this is knowing that maybe a $10 offer will work for a certain type of customer instead of sending a static $25 offer for everyone. So that saves your organization money, but it also helps to maintain that customer engagement that we're looking for. It also includes not just meeting the needs of your customers from a product or organizational perspective, but also, what about from a language perspective, accessibility needs, privacy perspective? All of these actions are triggered by the behaviors of your customers and the preferences that they share with you. So it really does create that agile and ever-evolving experience. And with ongoing analytics, we can continue to tailor and optimize that experience over time. We never set and forget. And I'm going to say that a lot probably during this presentation. So to bring this to life, we've shown here a similar life cycle journey that's brought to life in kind of two different ways. So it's based on the behaviors of our customer. In this fictitious example, we created a not-for-profit called The Greater Good. And we have an engagement journey that showcases how the content is adjusted based on their primary actions and interests. So in this scenario, we have a person who donates money, Jenny, versus a person who donates time, Mark. You can see here in this example, we have the app landing page, which has the same template, but the content pulled in dynamically represents how our donors have been tagged. We're also able to kind of pull in more detailed information, such as the amount of dollars donated or the amount of hours volunteered. And then we can also adjust the dynamic content based on their level of engagement. So for example, Jenny here, our financial donor donated dollars recently. So we push an in-app survey to understand what drives her to donate. In our volunteer example, it's actually been a month since Mark volunteered some hours. So we push some content towards him that talks about the power of volunteering and maybe some associated stories to kind of engage him further and get him to schedule another additional volunteer hour soon. So now we can see how this experience can kind of play out across channels. So we have some examples here for you, such as email or push notifications, SMS, etc. The experience and messaging is consistent across channels. And Jenny knows we appreciate her contributions. And for Mark, our goal is to get him to volunteer again. So the messaging resonates across each channel accordingly, with the emphasis growing as we move across channels to get Mark to schedule more hours. All of these individualized elements help to kind of build that trust and loyalty with our customers and drives that further engagement, which ultimately helps to drive our business forward. So that seems like a lot of work and a lot of effort to get to such an individualized experience out the door. So is it worth it? And the answer is absolutely yes. And there's two ways to look at the benefits of doing and focusing on your customers and creating a personalized engine. The first one is, looking at the benefits for your business. So there are a ton of stats out there that really substantiate the business case for being customer first or customer obsessed. So Forrester published a report and they demonstrated a 3 times revenue growth year over year, as well as a 3 times higher customer retention. So knowing the cost, we all know this, customer acquisition, retaining your customers is really important. And this is really monumental and will drive that significant bottom line result for your organization. The other way to look at the benefits of hyper-personalization is really from the customer's point of view. So customers' expectations, we hear this time and time again, they're only growing and the table stakes are really ever increasing. In the Salesforce State of the Connected Consumer Report, there's a ton of great stats and key takeaways that really demonstrate the need for a prioritized customer experience. And, we've all been there. You contact a call center and you have to share your story 4 different times to 4 different people. And then you get an email from the same company that has no idea that you just called the contact center and that you had an issue with the product that they're actually pushing in the email towards you. So it's really important. And it's gotten to the point where we can see here 80% of customers say that the experience that they have with the company is actually more important than the product or service itself. 80%. So especially if you're in a really highly competitive marketplace, which most organizations are, this is really, really critical. And the other interesting stat here is that more than half of customers already know that organizations aren't using the data that they've given them in a way that benefits them. So they are aware of what they've shared already, and they're waiting for us to demonstrate that value back to them. And the last point I wanted to make too is, there's a ton of stats about doing it right, but we also want to think about the reasons why it's important to not do it wrong. So there is a risk by not focusing on the customer experience and leveraging personalization to its fullest potential. And there was an article from McKinsey that showed that 76% of customers get really frustrated if you don't get it right. And again, we've probably gone through examples like this personally ourselves with our own relationships with organizations that we do business with. And we all know it really does erode that trust and increases the potential for churn. So again, I hit you with a lot of stats and you're probably thinking, okay, well, how does this all work exactly? So let's get into the crux of the actual experience engine. So this is the overall flow. And from left to right, you'll really see that it starts and ends with data. And then by leveraging various forms of technology all throughout that you'll likely already have some form of, you can bring that engine to life. So we start with bringing in customer data from any secure source and ensure that the data is mapped, cleansed, unified, and enriched. Just know that we will get into more detail about data needs itself in upcoming slides because there's a lot behind the data strategy. So we will get into more details there momentarily because that is a big portion of this. Like I said, it begins and ends with data. But from there, the data is dynamically routed based on customer details, lifecycle stages, et cetera. And then that enables your triggered multi-channel journeys. And then within those journeys, triggers can dynamically pivot based on the customer behaviors. And that ensures the experience is personalized as much as possible with the data that you already have. And then from there, of course, we would report on KPIs to analyze and optimize our experience and ensure we're delivering on the business and marketing goals we've established. The ideal state of this engine is really to have it built to scale so that it's a fully automated machine. However, we've seen some elements remain manual as you build this up, which is completely fine. Start small, build over time. As long as you're building toward this vision, it's completely fine. And it's better to do that than to wait for everything to be quote unquote perfect before you begin. And I'm a really big believer of just getting started, moving forward with an MVP, and just kind of phasing in sophistication and complexity over time. So to get into more detail of the components, here we go. What makes up this experience engine flow? So here's some examples of what it takes to get each part kind of going. So again, not everything is needed all at once. You can start with a few components to start with, but it's important to understand like what you have and what you don't have, and then plan to get there. So it's critical to map out all the journeys and touch points and document the business requirements as a whole so that you're really mindful of the entry and exit criteria for every journey, and that a customer flows through prioritized communications accordingly as well. So we've worked with some organizations where it was technically possible for one customer to be part of so many journeys that they could receive multiple emails a day from varying groups within the organization. So we really need to be mindful of that and just make sure that we're aware of the full customer experience as a whole. And we will get into the need for coordination within an organization in a few minutes, but like I promised, we're going to get into more of the data piece of it because that is a big component of this. So we'll kind of focus on that first. So the first piece here is data maturity. So I mentioned in the experience engine flow that it really starts and ends with data. So what we find is that many organizations collect a ton of data, but then they don't use it to their full advantage and operationalize it. So we often see most organizations really kind of get stuck at that standardized level and have a difficult time moving into those next stages of maturity. The goal for the experience engine is to be in that predictive level of maturity. And this is where we'll be able to leverage that machine learning and AI to truly scale our engine. But again, you can start from where you are, really take the time to discover where you are and kind of build towards that maturity. The next area is around key considerations with data strategy. So as you review your own data, we've listed here some elements to consider as you move towards that scalable personalization engine. So everything from data collection to fluidity to data governance, which is really important as well. So enabling your data is really where we go back to our stats on experience. It's so important to get it right. If we're not prioritizing our data, we really do risk losing our customers if we provide them a wrong experience, a bad experience, a poor experience. So it's really important to keep that in mind. Now, just because you have a whole bunch of beautiful, clean, fresh, organized data doesn't mean that the work stops there. So you really need to bring it to life by developing a data model and a blueprint and integrating this model into the actual data and tagging it accordingly, and then applying it to your customer communications. The data should be flowing through and helping to create those customer profiles as well as those engagement patterns that will inform the touch points in your prioritized journeys that they should receive. Now, this all comes to life beautifully in our content strategy. So to show you kind of how the data tagging could work, here's an example of how dynamic content modules, they're tagged based off of varying criteria. Sorry about that. Varying criteria and how these feed into an individual's experience based off of what we know from their customer profiles and engagement patterns. So Philip here, who's an active member and highly engaged, he would have a different experience within the same journey as compared to June, who we've identified as lapsed and has low engagement levels. And last but not least, finally, measurement. So once you have this model flowing through your engine, it is really critical to be able to report on it, to measure its effectiveness, and to optimize from there. There are also levels of maturity when it comes to how you report on the success of your campaigns. So these levels will really push your view of your campaigns and customer touch points from hindsight, so reporting on what might have happened, to foresight, what will happen. The goal, of course, like I mentioned earlier, is really moving to a predictive and prescriptive approach, at which point we're leveraging the power of AI to enable your customer experience and drive that engagement and success for your business. So I have talked a lot about strategy and key components of an experience engine, which is fine, but you're probably wondering, okay, well, how do I actually make this work in real life, Kathy? And that's why we have Devin here. Luckily, with her great experience with this, she'll now take you through how we leverage SFMC and Einstein to bring all of this beautiful stuff to life.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I'm going to talk about how this all comes to life in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. There is a way to send hyper-personalized messages in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. It's automated, intelligent, real-time personalization at scale. Through a mix of customer data, marketer rules, and artificial intelligence, marketers can send the most relevant content in every section for every user for every message. The goal of this tool is to increase the lifetime of the content, improve metrics like lifetime value, click-to-open rate, and reduce subscriber fatigue with email messages, and provide content-level analytics to inform future strategy. So we're going to talk about Einstein AI in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Einstein AI enhances the functionality in Salesforce Marketing Cloud content blocks by using advanced machine learning and predictive analytics to dynamically tailor content to individual users. This integration allows for real-time customization content, images based off users' behavior, preferences, and interaction history. As a result, each component of marketing message can be automatically optimized for maximum relevance and engagement. Next, we're going to talk about Einstein Content Selection. Einstein Content Selection is a sophisticated email experimentation tool designed for Salesforce Marketing Cloud users. This is a powerful tool that enhances subscriber engagement by dynamically selecting the most effective content, specifically images, for each individual subscriber. The selection process is governed by predefined rules, subscriber attributes, and historical engagement data. Einstein Content Selection is a no-code, open-time experimentation tool for personalized content. Because Einstein selects content at open time, it continues to evaluate for winning content while also experimenting to ensure that click-through rates are optimized. For Einstein Content Selection setup, this is the dashboard that you will see to configure Einstein Selection. So from the Settings tab, you can configure advanced settings and features for Einstein Content Selection. The Asset Distribution tab is where you would go to see a visual breakdown of your Einstein Content Selection assets. You would click View All Assets to find a list of your assets and upload more content assets as needed. Add customer profile from a data extension. This is where you would house the images and attributes that will build out your asset pool. You also find here that you can configure content selection rules, which is a set of custom rules regarding displaying time of assets and exclusion rules. You can also set fallback assets. So you can select the alternative image for each asset class to display when no matching content is found for a subscriber. Einstein can replace the need for segmenting sends or writing personalization into AMP script by matching asset attributes to consumer profile information. This is where you would create your asset pool. You would house your assets inside of a data extension and synchronize your data extension to create your asset pool. You would need to build out your asset pool, primarily images, which includes asset classes, asset attributes, profile attributes, and fallback assets. Next is where we'll talk about defining content selection rules and attribute mapping. This is where you will define your content selection rules. The content selection rules advance Einstein's ability to fine-tune and personalize content to customers. From the content selection rules edit page, you can map attributes and establish exclusion, fatigue, and variety rules. Attribute rules, this is where you will map assets and profile attributes. To create exclusion rules, which is the content that shouldn't be displayed to which subscribers, in other words, hard rules that Einstein must abide by that can't be interfered with other data Einstein is using for analysis. And then you will configure and set your fatigue rules. Configure fatigue rules to prevent a customer from seeing the same image more often than you want them to. The default days after last selection, days after last click, and selection maximum value appears when you open Einstein content selection fatigue rules. You can change these values. You can also set fallback assets. A fallback asset is the image shown to a subscriber if no content matches your established business rule criteria. Now let's talk about how we bring this to life in Content Builder. So let Einstein choose. While robots can't build emails for you, artificial intelligence can help you select what content should be sent to your customers. More specifically, Einstein Content Selection reviews your existing assets and selects the most engaging content for each unique subscriber. In Content Builder, you can drag and drop Einstein Content Selection content blocks inside of any email to build your hyper-personalized content. It's worth noting that Einstein Content Selection dramatically reduces the time it takes to create emails. Not only is your builder drag and drop, you can save time you would have otherwise been spent selecting images and segmenting your Marketing Cloud database to send different versions. Now we're going to talk about the analysis portion of how this comes to life in Marketing Cloud. So the Einstein Content Selection and Performance Analytics dashboard. This is your final navigation area. Once you've sent an email using Einstein Content Selection, you can assess how your assets are performing from the Performance Analytics dashboards. You can find class averages for unique clicks, click-to-open rates, as well as individual asset performance. Events are recorded and stored daily and can be downloaded as a daily report based on asset class, job ID, and asset attributes. These analyses are helpful as you work with your creative team to develop new content. And finally, to recap, Einstein Content Selection operates in real time, analyzing your content with your designated pool at the precise moment the subscriber opens the email. This ensures that the content is not only relevant at the time of sending, but also at the time of viewing. The tool intelligently adapts to any changes in subscriber attributes and engagement patterns, ensuring the content delivered is always optimized for maximal impact. Einstein Content Selection boosted ROI by 18% when used in promotional email campaigns sent by one organization.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin.
Of course.
All right. So let's go back for a second to our definition of personalization from Gartner, right? That it's a process creating relevant, individualized interaction between two parties designed to enhance the experience of a recipient. So the engine itself could be considered that process, but what we also need to do is kind of take a step back for a second and really think about how this needs to scale, not just within the engine itself, but also within your organization. So the engine could theoretically be turned on and start running with all of the pieces that we just talked about. But by adding the wheels of operational strategy, marketing strategy, data strategy, and tech strategy, it really will guarantee that it will make it go that much further. Personalization really does need to be an organizational-wide initiative. As a customer, I really don't care if the communications are coming from different product groups with different initiatives. All I care about is that I'm getting mixed messages from the same org who should know who I am. And again, we've all probably gone through elements of that. So I've listed out here some kind of key elements to keep in mind from each area of the organization that will kind of help to feed into our experience engine and really ensuring that the customer experience is organized, centralized, and prioritized across all the teams. Also, to reiterate that not all of this is needed upfront to get started, but to truly scale a prioritized customer first experience, customer obsessed, right? These elements will take you to that full level of maturity that we've been talking about. And this really should be a team effort. And we understand, that there's many organizations that are not currently built or structured in a way that will make this easy. And that's fine. And you're definitely not alone. We work with so many organizations who are facing similar challenges. We also, we often recommend starting small, creating maybe a business case and proving the value of these initiatives to help drive forward the organizational change needed to enable this ever-changing world of our very high expectation customer. Also, we often try to apply change management best practices and strategies throughout all of this to really help enable the teams and increase that pace of progress. So some key takeaways. I will probably sound like a broken record at this point, but if you walk away with any insight from this webinar, it should be that personalization really is a process. It's not just adding someone's first name to the top of an email or in an app. That there will never be a perfect time to start. Just start, get an MVP going, make mistakes, but learn from them quickly and keep iterating from there. Also remember that you probably already have a lot of the tools and tech and data that can get you started today. So don't worry about that so much. And then really, as you move forward within that maturity model, prioritizing the data strategy, the amount of time that you spend on your content creation and campaign development will really fall flat if you're not sending it to the right person at the right time, at the right place, in the right way. And finally, just because, I keep saying this, but, just because you've set up an automation or a behavior-based trigger journey doesn't mean it should be forgotten about. We always want to monitor performance and ensure that we're reviewing that customer experience really as a whole and not just in a siloed campaign or from a siloed product group. So ongoing monitoring, but also taking the time every once in a while to really kind of take a step back and really see what's going on across the board is really important. And we definitely advocate for that. So with that, we will start moving into our Q&A section, and I see some questions have popped up already, so we will address those in a second. But what I did do as well is, we've talked about this with a lot of different people in different organizations. So I wanted to kind of call out a couple of, points that we often hear back when we go through details around an experience engine or personalization. So the first one that, we get is that many people will look at this and think this is way too complex and they're feeling overwhelmed. And we often say for this, take the time to truly go through a discovery process. That's where I would start. Really understand what you're working with and be honest with yourself. Maybe the gaps that you think exist actually aren't as big as they were in your mind as they actually are on paper, right? So making sure that you really truly understand that, taking the time to understand that, it might end up saving you a lot of time and level of effort in the end. The other piece that we often get is that, okay, my data is a mess, right? It's a big pain point. A lot of people don't even know where to start, which is fair, especially with an organization that may have been collecting data for a really long time without a very clear data strategy. So we really recommend in these instances to take a look at your zero-party and first-party data that you already have access to. Start implementing testing and learning strategies across those to try to get more data, get more of that zero-party and first-party data, and keep iterating from there, keep moving from there, and keep building that engine of data, so to speak. Another misconception is that you just have to automate everything and now everything's going to be AI and everything's going to be machine learning. And that's just simply not true and unrealistic, especially right now. Like it's growing. We all see the sophistication of AI maturing, and who knows what the next 12 months will bring. It's definitely moving a lot faster than I had anticipated, which is really exciting. But at the end of the day, it is not the answer to everything. Some communications and touch points will always require some type of manual input, and that is okay. So the goal here is really to automate what you can, create as much efficiency as you can, but that doesn't mean it has to be everything. So typically we recommend kind of a 70-30 split. So 70% of your time should be spent on strategy and optimizations, and then 30% of your time is spent on actual campaign production and execution. Most organizations today usually have that flipped where they spend 70% of their time trying to very reactively get campaigns out the door quickly and on time and all those things. And then only 30% of their time, or usually less, on the actual strategy itself. And then finally, we mentioned this earlier, but as you try to kind of work within groups within your organization, it can be difficult to get everyone on board and really try to understand the importance of your initiatives of personalizations and customer first, right? So everyone has their own success metrics and priorities within the org. So applying that change management principle to these initiatives, really from our experience, has helped to accelerate a lot of these objectives. We also find workshops work wonders. They really help to get the right people in the same room. It creates a level of understanding across teams and helps to kind of drive the coordination for bigger initiatives such as an experience engine. So with that, I see there's 3 questions here, so I'll start to answer these. So what's a brand you've seen do personalization really well? That is a great question. I I want to change the saying Rome wasn't built in a day to Amazon wasn't built in a day. I think that's always kind of the main one that everyone talks about. And also, the Starbucks and the Sephoras of the world are pretty sophisticated in their personalization and dynamic content, from what I can see. And the thing is that it's great to look at those best in class programs and kind of try to emulate what they do. But I always try to say as well, they all started with a welcome email. They all started with something simple. They started to grow. It didn't happen overnight. They learned, they grew, they made mistakes, they built towards that. So just kind of keep that in mind as you look at those kinds of examples and try not to think we can never be like that. That's not true. There's a lot you can do with the data that you have, whether you're a large organization like Amazon or a smaller one. I don't know, Devin, do you have any other any other examples of companies that you've seen have done personalization really well?
Amazon has, Walmart's doing a really great
Yeah.
job at it as well. I think your big box retailers really kind of put a lot of investment into personalization and optimization cross channels.
Yeah. Yeah, which makes sense because again, highly competitive marketplace. So that's a differentiator for sure.
Yeah.
The next question is, what's a crawl, walk, run approach to personalization that you suggest? So that's a really great question. I mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier, which is first, really take the time to do a bit of discovery within your own org. Really try to understand what technology do you already have. A lot of people will different tools within Salesforce that you might not even realize you have access to, or maybe aren't using to its full capacity, for example. So really understanding those elements, understanding how centralized is your data, who are the different stakeholders within your organization that really kind of manage all of these components and what you need to kind of do to enable some of this change. But at the very, very least, making sure that you start with, one journey, one experience, and really kind of build on from there. Start tacking in complexity, making sure that you're always testing and learning, especially in more efficient and effective channels like email, for example. You can learn a lot and then apply those learnings across other channels that may be a little bit more expensive to test within. So really kind of understanding that and building upon from there is really kind of the key approach. And then understanding what you have and what you don't have and how to maintain those gaps in between and create a plan for future state. Any insight from your perspective, Devin, on the SFMC side and campaign side?
Yeah, I think like it's really important to develop your customer profile attributes. This will help inform your planning, your strategy, knowing what your customers are interested in. And if you don't have that already, you can do survey campaigns to collect that data, as well as leveraging a profile or preference center to allow your subscribers to opt in or opt down out of specific interest. There's a couple ways that you could start to start building your plan toward full optimization.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last question I can see here is, if an audience member is part of multiple segments, how many emails do you recommend they should receive per week? How do you prioritize which emails they should receive? That's a really great question. I don't want to assume that, a customer should only get one email a week. Well, what if they're really highly engaged and they're about to make a purchase and they actually want 4 emails that week because they're hot on the tracks of a deal? They want to convert, they want to buy your product or whatever it is, they want to convert, then maybe that's the time to send them a lot. So let their behavior dictate how many messages they should receive, because some people might want a ton of different messages, different SMS messages or website pop-ups or in-app messages, etc. And really taking a look at the behavior to understand what channels do they resonate best with. So prioritizing those channels, where do they respond most with, for example. And then prioritizing which emails they should receive. So let's say there are conflicting campaigns happening. That's where the BRD business requirements doc really comes in, and really kind of understanding those entry and exit points of which journeys someone should receive and shouldn't receive. So all of that should be strategized and planned as you implement that journey and really kind of understand what's happening, which is why, again, every so often taking a step back and looking at the impact of additional journeys that have been added to the experience. How does that adjust the business requirements of the journeys that already exist, for example? So it's really important to keep that in mind. And then a question just popped up here. What are your thoughts regarding AI enabled as opposed to automation enabled personalization tools? Are they ready or still caution on quality? That's a good question. I don't know, Devin, do you want to take that one?
I can speak specifically to Marketing Cloud and the Einstein tools. So the AI in Einstein is really more of a predictive analytics, machine learning based off of your subscribers' engagement. Whereas in an automation approach, you have to predefine all of the components that go within the automation. You have to, in a manual way, set it up and then constantly come back to it and pull your analysis, whereas the machine learning can do it for you and offer up predictive suggestions on what is the best next piece of content that your customer should receive based off their engagement history.
Yeah. And a big part of enabling the AI piece of it is just making sure that your data and your strategy around your data is really on par, because you don't want to have AI enabling bad information. We've seen what happens there. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. And that really is what makes the AI tools more mature and sophisticated within this realm. But yes, there's still a ton of different ways to leverage AI, and like we said, AI is maturing, and it's maturing very quickly, a lot faster than probably a lot of us anticipated. And so we'll keep an eye on it for sure, and that's definitely something that keeps our interest every day. But honestly, just try and fail. Fail fast. Try different tools, see what happens. It doesn't hurt to kind of keep pushing and pressing. Different ways of doing things. I think that enables, all of the sophistication and maturity that we're talking about. So if you have a safe and easy way to do it, I would say go for it. Absolutely. And keep pushing those boundaries. But, keep monitoring it. And again, don't set and forget, because you never know. So just being mindful of that as well. All right, so I think we have all the questions answered. If you guys have any other questions afterwards, we'll share our emails at the end of the slides here, so you can copy that down, and definitely don't hesitate to reach out to Devin or myself. But I really wanted to also say that if you love this webinar, you'll love our next one coming up on May 14th, which is about navigating an omni-channel strategy in the world of compliance and privacy. So we did touch a little bit on data governance and privacy and preferences today, as we talked about, customer preferences and the experience we provide them. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that world in the next webinar, which I will also be co-hosting with another team member from Shift. So don't forget to sign up to that one. And yeah, that's it. Thank you again. Please don't hesitate to reach out either again to Devin or myself. And I hope you have a wonderful day.